If someone told you 3 years ago that Rory McIlroy would someday be wearing earbuds in the ninth fairway at Augusta National while chatting with Jim Nantz during play at the Masters, you'd never believe it. But it happened in 2023. It's one of several innovations on the CBS golf broadcast, including far more shot tracers, even changes to the music. Those changes were developed by a team of CBS Sports professionals who are led by my guest on this episode. Sellers Shy started at CBS as a volunteer, a runner, at the tournament in his hometown of Memphis. Today, he's just the third person ever to hold the title of lead producer for golf on CBS. The past, present, and future of the PGA Tour on television on this episode of Media Credentials. My name is Whit Watson, and this is Media Credentials. I'm a sports announcer who's worked a lot of places. This podcast will peel back the layers of sports media and show you how the sausage gets made. Through interviews with industry pros and my own experience, you'll understand why you're seeing what you're seeing and who's responsible for it. Your media credentials have been approved. CBS has been televising golf for nearly 70 years, and in that span, remarkably, there have been only 3 people to hold the title of lead producer. The first was the late Frank Chirkinian. It's practically impossible to adequately explain how much impact Chirkinian had and continues to have on televised golf. Leaderboards that show where a player is in relation to par as opposed to his total score, that was Frank. Aerial coverage for golf, Frank started that too, after seeing a blimp hovering over a football game at the Orange Bowl. Cameras on elevated platforms, microphones on the golf course. There's a reason why Chirkinian is considered the godfather of televised golf. His successor was Lance Barrow, the gravelly-voiced Texan from Fort Worth. Lance was a CBS lifer, starting out as a spotter for Pat Summerall and going on to win 12 Emmys as a lead producer for both golf and the NFL. Lance produced 4 Super Bowls, the 1998 Daytona 500, events at the 1994 Olympics, and countless other CBS productions. When he retired after the 2020 season, CBS elevated Sellers Shy to lead producer for golf. Sellers works on NFL games, college football, other events for CBS, but for 23 weeks this year, his is the voice in the headsets for the CBS golf team. Our conversation ranges from his early influences in Memphis, his introduction to the legendary Frank Chirkinian, his vision for golf on CBS, and their continuing partnership with the PGA Tour. I want to start kind of at the beginning, and that is in Memphis, where you're from, and your big break, if you will, into televised golf and CBS by being a volunteer at the hometown PGA Tour stop. Tell me how that happened.
Yeah, Whit, I mean, thanks for calling me. Listen, I'm very proud of what we've done here at CBS, and then to be able to go harken all the way back to 1986 is a lot of fun for me. I enjoyed playing junior golf. I did play for some junior events. I played in high school, and just during that time, I was hopeful to work the Danny Thomas Classic, and the initial goal was just to go work for the tournament. But when I went to the tournament, they said CBS is looking for a couple runners, and why don't you join them? I said, sure. And I guess the rest is history. I worked a handful of events for them as a runner. Then then what they needed a handful of runners in Hilton Head. So I said, sure, I'm available. So I went to Hilton Head. They needed runners for PGA Championship because now that I've seen it firsthand, I mean, we average about 120, 150 people out here in a normal event, and we're running at about 1,000 during a PGA Championship. So I fully understand that there's more personnel needed. And so I drove to the majority of the PGA Championships from 92 Belle Reve all the way until I became staff in '97. Everyone minus the 95, which was in LA, which I always make a joke that I don't know if my car would have made it all the way there. So from Memphis, Tennessee. So, yeah. And you know what? It's clearly something that I've thanked every single person in every stage that I land on. And in the end, was it worth it? Of course, it was worth it, but there was a lot of sweat equity in many of these opportunities. So,
And before we get too far away from Memphis, I didn't realize until I read a couple of interviews that you did that Dr. Cary Middlecoff was a mentor and an influence on you as a junior golfer as well as professionally, right?
yeah, he won 3 majors, 2 U.S. Opens, and a Masters in 1955, and I was brought up in that generation. When I was born, my dad was 50, and so I love that generation. They had guts. They had a lot of courage, a lot of swagger, and um, a lot of my dad's friends had that, and Dr. Middlecoff was one of them. I'm just very thankful that entire group was part of my life, and I think about him all the time because I actually have his locker at our local club in Memphis. That enables me to kind of, my dad passed away in '98, so it enables me to reflect on that entire generation almost every time I get to play golf, which isn't as much as I want, but nevertheless, I'm very thankful that I'm tied to Dr. Middlecoff through his locker.
You can't talk about golf on CBS without talking about the late great Frank Chirkinian. And
Mm.
I don't think people understand 80% of what we take for granted in
Mm-hmm.
televised golf was invented by Frank Chirkinian. I
Yeah.
mean, the over under par. You know, there was a time when the final score was 270 and you didn't know what
Mm-hmm.
that meant. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Painting the cups white, putting a
Mm-hmm.
camera on a blimp. Um,
Mm-hmm.
did did the person outpace the legend? I mean, was
That's a
he as large as life as he appeared to be?
He was, and that's a really good way to describe Frank. And I see it to this day because, as you know, Whit, and working with you, to the right of me is Steve Milton, who started in the mailroom in 1982, and then worked directly with Frank. Actually, even directed some late golf tournaments with Frank in the mid '90s. To the left of me is Jim Rickoff and Mark Dibbs, and all of these guys worked under Frank. So Frank's influence uh, is still permeates throughout our compound to this day. You see a lot of his influence in our broadcast, and we're very thankful that he was the Ayatollah, as they say. He was the father figure for all of us in how to do broadcast the right way. And all of us are very thankful, and we bring up his name every week. We talk about him, or what would Frank do, and we brought it up last week in Mexico even, and so we're very thankful that he was part of our world, and we try to take what he taught us and enhance it and modernize it. So yes, he is still extremely influential in our presentation.
The 60 plus year history of golf on CBS, there have been three lead producers,
Yeah,
Frank being one, and Lance Barrow being the man who preceded you in this
yeah,
position. And
yeah.
I know that Lance still has quite a bit of influence, a guy who was also sort of at Frank's right hand for a number of years. But
Hmm.
I'm sure that Lance still has a lot of influence on your thinking.
Exactly right, and Lance was. I'm very thankful for Lance in holding my hand and taking me through this this taking me through this constructive carnival ride. And there are many things I learned from Lance, who also produced numerous Super Bowls. as well as, probably 50 majors with the PGA and the Masters. I learned that, when the light turns on is when we're at our best. And when when we got to the compound on Saturday of a major and we had to be our best, we most of the time were. And that's what of all the things I learned from Frank and learned from Lance and learned from everyone that worked alongside Lance, um, I've learned that is that I know that every single person in every single seat is ready for the biggest events, and whether it's the Masters, whether it's the PGA Championship, or whether it's even this week in Wells Fargo for a designated event, we'll be ready.
I want to ask you about designated events in a little bit. The innovations on the CBS shows that have been so well received, changes in music, a constant leaderboard, being able to talk to players during competition. The walk and talk is not a new thing, but doing it without an announcer on the ground talking to the player is a new thing. And my understanding was that you came in with a game plan that you presented to CBS in New York, and it was very warmly received. And obviously, they said yes to just about everything. How did you come up with that plan?
Well, it's nice of you to notice, and I'm very thankful that others have as well. And it was just more of we wanted to enhance the broadcast. We wanted to make sure that we are in touch with the viewer at home, the viewer in a bar, the viewer in a restaurant, the viewer in a golf shop, the viewer in a anywhere where golf is on television. And that the constant leaderboard came from many years of watching a basketball game or a football game when you see that lower third score bug. And what's the first thing when you're sitting in, as I said, any of those establishments, what's the first thing the person says? It's who's leading, who's winning, or what's the score. And I had heard enough of that to where I said, you know what, we need that. And I'm fully aware that Fox had it in the U.S. Open. We spent a lot of time on improving it, enhancing it, and very thankful that with the support of our executive team, led by Sean McManus and David Burson and Harold Bryant, that we were able to do something that would change the landscape of the modern golf broadcasts. And we're very proud of that. And I think there's a lot of trust involved there with Sean and the rest of the team. They trust us. And when we came with the constant leaderboard and it worked, then all of a sudden it enabled us to do a lot. And that includes, what you said, new music. We've added tracers. We understand that now the viewer almost counts on seeing a tracer from the fairway because it's hard to see the ball. And we added some virtual graphics to Amanda's set, and then that was just the beginning. And then also with the drone, the drones. Along with the constant leaderboard and everything else, the drones really helped set the tone on what CBS Golf was going to look like, feel like moving forward. And then we go to fast forward to this year, right out of the gate. You always heard about the mic'd up and the walk and talk and how they really didn't click because we just had a microphone on a player and we're reliable on whatever the player would say who's entrenched in his competition, and you really didn't get a lot out of it, and it's understandably so. So then how could we get something out of this enhancement? Well, you put someone on the other, as I say, on the other line of the can, and it was Trevor and it was everyone else in the Super Tower, which was another enhancement. We put all of our announcers at the 18th green. where they are to this day. And it really has worked out, and we've seen and heard a lot of positive feedback, beginning with Max Homa, who, the players were always worried about, if we put it in our ear, then it will influence my shot, and I don't know if I'll play well. Well, Max ended up winning the Farmers. And
Right.
so that put that to bed immediately, and that really helped us. And so it became a lot easier to ask players after Max's performance to be a part of this enhancement. And therefore, Keith Mitchell was talked off by his caddy at Pebble Beach when he was mic'd up. We had Tom Kim, I think, make eagle at Waste Management while he was playing with us. And then Colin Morikawa, we at Riviera, we replayed his tee shot at 16 at Harding Park, and he heard it in his ear, and it got him all excited. He said, "These are the things that I need at this time." So we've taken different angles with each player, and it's really worked out. Not to mention, have Rory and Justin Thomas and Max again at the Masters. We had Bo Hostler and Wyndham Clark in New Orleans. We had Jimmy Walker while he was leading at Hilton Head. So thankfully, the players have seen what it would do, not only to their brand, because there is value there with, but also to the overall golf property, which all of them care deeply about.
The golf bubble, as I call it, is pretty small in terms of media. We all kind of know each other, or at least follow each other on social media. You see the same people on the road every single week, but you alluded to being in touch with the fans and realizing what the viewer wants.
Mm-hmm.
Do you follow social media? How do you find out what the viewer wants, or what? I mean, are you part of golf Twitter? Are you checking in to see what people are talking about?
No, it's a great question. In a casual setting, I would tell everyone that I read everything, and it's up to me to filter it and see what the true feeling is, not only in the golf media space, but also in the overall golf fan space. And that's on me. I've never tweeted anything. I just, I take it all in. I read articles. I read all the ones that are the obvious articles. I listen. I listen to even diehard friends of mine at home that play, 4 times a week. I listen. I still get emails from grandparents that are watching. That so the demographic, the reach of our CBS golf fan base is I'd say from probably 15 to 80. So you not only have to filter everything in just a social media sense, but also in an overall demographic sense. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but I do work very hard in listening to everyone, but then filtering what could really be a nice enhancement and what is sometimes just aggravation that their favorite player didn't win.
And sticking with the bubble topic for a second, you go from the golf world to the football world, to the NFL, to the Southeastern Conference.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest watch in American sports is professional and college football.
Mm-hmm.
How does the preparation change? How does the energy change? The sheer size, the scope of what you're doing at a regular season PGA Tour event. Take the Masters out, that's a separate entity, but a regular non-playoff PGA Tour event compared to going to Tuscaloosa or going into Buffalo in November. How does that differ?
That's funny you said that. I actually had that Buffalo versus Indiana versus the Colts game where it was the snow game that we couldn't even see the Colts jerseys from our high cameras, so we had to cover the game from the cart camera low. So that's one great memorable game that I was a part of. I work, as I said, in our truck here with different responsibilities. I'm not the lead in NFL or SEC. I just work and have worked for many years. We have 8 games, regional games at some times on Sundays, and then I produced however many years of SEC football. But to the right of me is an SEC director. He's directed Steve Milton. I'd say 20 years of SEC championships. And to the left of me is Jim Rickoff, who is producing the Super Bowl in Las Vegas next year. So we all enjoy each property within its own space. We do arrive in a college football game, let's say on a Thursday. NFL game is Thursday or even a Friday morning, where you cover the game, you meet with the teams, you cover the game on Sunday. Golf is almost a Monday to Sunday or a Tuesday to Sunday event. There's longevity there. We love it that every week is a different story. The fields are deep enough to where normally each week we'll have something different, and there's a freshness there that all of us enjoy. But maybe I just take the blanket answer, but it is true. Whit, is that we're very proud at CBS Sports of the properties that we have, and that's thanks to our executive team in providing us with sports that all of us love, and we love to play golf, and we have 23 weeks this year. We love the NFL. We love covering the NFL. We have the AFC and the Super Bowl, and then we love SEC football, and now transitioning into Big Ten. They're sports that are as popular as anything in America, and we are very proud that we're able to broadcast it to the viewer.
You may have started to answer the next question. I was going to ask you, how many weeks a year do you spend on the road? You said 23 weeks a year for the PGA Tour. So that's half the year right there. So how many weeks a year are we talking about?
Yeah, that's right. It's 23 weeks of golf. And then since I've transitioned this new role about 3 years now, the surveys are now not an entire week. So while we may travel Tuesday to Thursday in the fall, it's not like what Steve would do in let's say 12 weeks of college football, or Jim Rickoff would do in 17, 18 weeks of NFL. So, I would say on average, most of the production team, they're around, I'd say 35 weeks out of the year. Yeah, out of the year. And, you have to have a strong family base to be able to handle it. You have to be strong-willed. And frankly, I want to make sure that what's as important as any full-page graphic we put on the screen with is our compound culture. It's very important to us. And spreading kind of positivity around the compound is extremely important. We think it's healthy. And listen, we have the Masters, we have Hilton Head, the Heritage, we had Zurich, we have Mexico. We're working on week 5 now with Wells Fargo, with 5 more after this. And so, it's very important to make sure that your teammates are in a good place. And we feel like that, knowing that how important that is, that we're in a good place for our next five weeks in a row.
I always joke with my wife that I was holding a microphone when you met me, so there's no excuse. You knew what you were getting into, and much like you, we're almost exactly the same age. My kids have never known anything different.
Right.
But I'll give you a chance to score some points at home. Your wife must be very understanding of this lifestyle, and the whole family really must be, because you've got two kids that are playing college sports, and that's a
Yeah.
very, very busy schedule.
Yep.
And and I believe three kids total, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so your
So,
wife must be very understanding about
you know
this.
what? We got married in '98. So and we started dating in mid college at Ole Miss, and so she definitely did, which was '92. So she absolutely knew what she was getting into. We actually had to move to New York to so I could cut my teeth in '98. I was able to move back in 2003 in the heat of our SEC schedule, um, which was a lot of fun to be down back down there, being able to edit in games that are just not far from where you live and where you went to school. But you're right, and she's known it a long time, and very thankful because it's not easy. And then to raise three kids, as you said, one was a wide receiver at Ole Miss, just graduating next week, and one's a sophomore at North Carolina, plays lacrosse for them, and then a daughter, senior in high school, graduating next week as well, same week in the Byron Nelson. It's listen, there are pluses and minuses. You go through ups and downs, but it's been very rewarding for all of us. And luckily, yes, I missed some things, but I've also been able to attend a lot because my early in the week time, especially in the fall, early in the week, I was able to drive them to school and pick them up. And a lot of dads can't do that. They're working, 8 to 7 to 5, Monday through Friday. And I was able to assist my wife during the week. So definitely pluses and minuses to this job. And I'm sure similar jobs like mine.
Coming back to golf just for a moment, the PGA Tour structurally has changed pretty dramatically it seems like just in the last couple of months, although some of these changes were in the works for a while. And of all of them, it seems the one that affects you and CBS Golf the most are the designated events. And as you mentioned, as you and I talk, this pod will live forever, but as you and I talk, you're in Charlotte for the Wells Fargo, which is one of those designated events. What's your reaction? You've been there, you've seen it, you know what the ratings are. What's your reaction to these events?
I've taken. I'll take one step back in that we've had a similar, or we're thankful to have a similar schedule for the last 20 years, and so we built relationships with all of these tournaments, whether designated or not. And then when you look at the designated events, you look at what Genesis did with John Rahm winning. You look at what Waste Management did, and then specifically and more recently to what Jordan and Cantlay did to our ratings at the Heritage in Hilton Head. And it seems like this model has so far proven its worth. At Hilton Head, it was the largest audience for a regular season event since 2021, and Justin Thomas went in the Players. And so it seems like this format is what the viewer wants: a deeper, richer, star-studded type field. And we have the resources to cover it properly. We have the trust from management to cover it properly, and faith from the tour that their initiative will be brought to light. So, we'll be ready this week, just like we have been ready for all the previous designated events. And listen, we also have a Travelers coming up. We have Memorial coming up, and we have the playoffs this year. It seems like since COVID, especially, that the golf is in a good place with, and we're here to take advantage of the opportunity that we have with not only the resources but also the thirst for to watch golf on television.
Well, the even better news for you is that CBS is going to be at this for a while. This is the beginning of a long-term deal, a long-term extension of the pre-existing relationship with the PGA Tour, and just kind of give me an eye towards the future, no pun intended, an eye towards the future as far as golf on CBS and where you guys are going.
We've, we're very thankful that we have a contract with the PGA Tour till 2030. That's number one, because we think that gives us the ability to stretch our imagination. I think our just immediate track record of a constant leaderboard, of our drone coverage, of our walk and talks, of our virtual capability, has all these enhancements have so far proven to be successful and popular. And this is just really it's year 3 for this team. And knowing that we have this contract for another 7 years, I think only enables us to showcase what we're about. It also enables us to strengthen the partnership with the PGA Tour and strengthen trust amongst our executive team with new ideas, and hopefully in the end that creates more enthusiasm for the fan, and it enables all of us to see CBS Golf as a premier property to watch, and makes it frankly competitive with everything else that's out there. NASCAR, Major League Baseball, NBA. We want to think that we will hold our own in that competition.
In just a few seconds, we'll have some closing thoughts on this episode, so stay tuned. If you're enjoying it so far, please consider subscribing or sharing and leave a review. Let me know what you'd like to hear in the future on Media Credentials. You heard Sellers refer to the late Frank Chirkinian as the Ayatollah. That was a nickname given to Chirkinian by none other than Pat Summerall himself, and Chirkinian was said to have loved it. You can probably tell from the conversation that nobody would refer to Sellers by such a nickname. One comment that caught my ear was the culture of the compound. A quick explainer for those outside the golf TV industry. The PGA Tour's TV agreement is such that the broadcast network that carries the weekend coverage provides the hardware and the tech support for Golf Channel's cable coverage on Thursday and Friday, plus the early bonus coverage Saturday and Sunday. Since Golf Channel and NBC are owned by the same company, that transition is fairly seamless when NBC has the weekend. It is a credit to Sellers and the culture of the compound that when CBS has the weekends, the transition is, in my experience, equally seamless. Those names that he mentioned, Steve Milton, Jim Rickoff, Mark Dibbs, too many names to mention in this space, they've always made the CBS compound a welcoming place. I look forward to enjoying their work for many years to come. Thanks again for listening to Media Credentials. For examples of my work, including video and audio clips, a blog, and my contact page, check out whitwatson.com.